Hey guys, tonight we're slipping through the smoky back streets of Paris, the kind where laundry flaps on crooked lines, where gutters run thick with rainwater and the whispers of things better left unspoken. We're heading toward a flickering lantern down a cobbled alley, behind which sits a woman with coal-ringed eyes, a flask of something unholy on the boil, and an answer to your darkest little problem if you can pay. You're meeting La Voisin tonight, and honestly, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're walking the outskirts of 17th century Paris, where you pass women selling herbs out of stained aprons, children barefoot in the muck, and a plague doctor's mask hanging ominously from a doorframe like a warning or a promise. But you're not here for leeches or prayers. You're looking for something stronger, something that works. That's how most people found her. Catherine Monvoisin, better known as La Voisin, doesn't scream danger when you first meet her. She's warm, even grandmotherly, with dark curls tucked under, a bonnet, and a practical dress that smells faintly of lavender and ashes. She starts as a fortune teller, reading your future in cards or palms, maybe whispering something precise for comfort. But her true business lies beneath the tea leaves. She operates out of a modest house near Rue de Beauregard. Her front parlor's cluttered with velvet drapes, brass candlesticks, and shelves sagging with bottles that probably aren't labeled FDA approved. Want to know if your husband's cheating? She'll tell you. Want him to stop? She can arrange that too with a little something she calls inheritance powder. By the 1660s, La Voisin is becoming less of a curiosity and more of a name passed quietly between fans at the market and noble women behind fans at court. Paris is a city obsessed with fate, half Catholic guilt, half pagan habitant. Her services hit both buttons. She offers powders for fertility, perfumes that attract lovers, charms to secure inheritance, and on more than one occasion, poison. The thing about poisons back then is, they were weirdly respectable. Apothecaries sold arsenic alongside peppermint oil, if you knew what to ask for, and you had the coin. You could get your hands on anything from deadly nightshade to mercury. And you didn't need to be a chemist. La Voisin's staff took care of the details. She employed midwives, alchemists, and even a couple of rogue priests. This was no Etsy side hustle. This was an operation. Her circle included a man named Adam Lesage, a known magician who claimed he could summon demons for a small fee naturally. There was also Etienne Guyborg, a defrocked priest who'd later be accused of performing sacrilegious rites involving actual church items, like chalices and altars, and possibly babies. But more on that later. She even had a professional poisoner on speed dial, Marie Boss, who allegedly bragged that she'd killed more people than the plague. Historians still argue whether La Voisin was the true mastermind or just a convenient figure head for a much wider network. Some even suggest that she didn't understand the scale of what she built until it was far too late, like starting a book club and realizing it's become a covert society. For assassination tips and demon gossip, you duck inside her back room where her apprentice is grinding something green and crumbly with a mortar and pestle. Don't ask. She offers you a vial. You hold it up to the candlelight. It shimmers like melted gold. Just a few drops in wine, she murmurs like she's recommending a tea blend. You'll never see him again. You nod. Not because you're convinced, but because she's convincing. By now, you're wondering who would risk everything to buy this kind of solution. And the answer is almost everyone. The rich, the poor, the desperate, the bored. The French court is a drama circus filled with ambitious nobles, love triangles, inheritance disputes, and more petty vendettas than a reality show reunion. And La Voisin, she's the quiet producer behind the scenes, offering script adjustments. Paris isn't just the heart of France, it's the twisted nerve center of whispered power games. Louis XIV, the Sun King himself, is busy transforming Versailles into a Baroque paradise with gold trim and political intrigue baked into every inch of drapery. But beneath all that polish, France is unstable. War drains the coffers, taxes rise, superstition swells. You don't trust the church, but you do trust the woman who gave your friend that special divorce wine that works so well. And here's the quirky bit most people forget. La Voisin also hosted garden parties. Seriously. Between hexing noblemen and bottling death, she ran a semi-respectable front. Her daughter, Marguerite, served drinks. Musicians played. Ladies sipped herbal infusions that may or may not have contained trace elements of belladonna. It's all very Bridgerton meets Breaking Bad, but the pot starts to boil over when too many bodies go missing, and too many nobles start mysteriously benefiting from unfortunate deaths. The authorities are slow to act at first, partly because many of them are clients themselves. But the pressure's mounting, the rumors are getting louder, and one day, someone makes a mistake. Someone talks. For now, though, you lean back in her parlor chair, feeling the weight of your little glass vial in your pocket. Outside, the bells of Notre Dame toll softly through the fog. A child laughs. Somewhere a dog barks. And you wonder just for a moment if you've sold your soul for a cure or for a curse. The candlelight flickers as you step deeper into the back rooms of La Voisin's home. The kind of space that smells faintly of incense and something a little more organic. You pass heavy velvet curtains, oddly quiet parrots in cages, and a strange sense that the walls themselves are listening. This is where the real business happens. No fortune cards, no love charms, just whispered oaths, chalk symbols, and blood, sometimes literal, sometimes metaphorical. Tonight's client waits in a silk cloak, her hands gloved even in summer. You catch her profile, powdered face, the sharp curve of a noble jaw. She's someone important. She also looks terrified. She murmurs to La Voisin, and the older woman nods, already preparing the ingredients. This isn't about marriage or fertility. This is about death. And possibly demons. By now, La Voisin isn't just a local curiosity. She has become something like a spiritual concierge for France's most powerful women. When regular prayers don't work, they come to her. When they want something off the record, they step through that velvet curtain. And increasingly, they're asking for services beyond the physical. They want guarantees. And La Voisin starts offering them in the form of black masses. Now, the Black Mass is a topic so drenched in myth and scandal that even historians tiptoe around it. What's clear is this: some version of them were performed in Paris during La Voisin's rise, and she was very much involved. She claimed to call upon infernal powers not out of belief necessarily, but as a business model. Clients would lie on a naked woman used as a human altar, and yes, she sometimes hired people just for that. And a defrocked priest would mutter Latin backwards while offering prayers not to God, but to the other guy. Sometimes animal blood was used, sometimes wine, sometimes something else. Occasionally, the ceremonies included newborns, but whether those babies were symbolic, already deceased, or sacrificed, well, historians still argue whether any of it was real or theatrically staged for dramatic effect. The line between horror and hocus pocus was thin, and La Voisin knew exactly how to walk it. What's less debatable is that her clients believed, not just in her, but in what they were doing. They included duchesses, marquises, and most famously, Madame de Montespan, King Louis XIV's official mistress, a woman known for both ambition and charm. According to some sources, she participated in these rites to keep the king's love, to eliminate rivals, or just to ensure her children's place at court. Montespan allegedly offered up written petitions during the rituals asking demons by name to carry out her will. A celestial suggestion box, if you will. One account claims the priest Etienne Guyborg, who performed many of these masses, once recited an entire Latin liturgy over a sacrificed infant's body, while Montespan stood by in prayer. Again, this is hotly contested. Some scholars believe these stories were exaggerated after the fact, used to punish powerful women or discredit them politically. But whether it was all real or ritual theater, the atmosphere was electric with fear, desperation, and that uniquely French blend of perfume and panic. La Voisin knew how to play her part. She dressed like a widow, spoke softly but with absolute authority, and always knew exactly what her client needed to hear. If you wanted to love her back, she'd say the spirits had taken notice. If you wanted someone dead, she'd slide you a vial with the same poise you'd use to hand someone a rose. She even customized her poisons. Wanted fast and dramatic, arsenic with a touch of cantharides. Wanted slow and hard to trace, a subtle brew of aconite and belladonna. And here's the fringe tidbit: she sometimes offered powdered mole, as in the small burrowing animal, as an ingredient to ensure invisibility from law enforcement. No word on its actual effectiveness, but it made people feel safer. The placebo effect, now with more fur. You watch as tonight's client kisses a pendant and hands over a purse, heavy with coins. La Voisin tucks it away without counting. Her prices are steep, often enough to ruin a small household, but her clientele rarely blink. What's a few thousand lives when you're protecting your bloodline? It's worth noting that this entire operation thrived not just because of belief, but because of frustration. For women, especially noble women, life was a tightly corseted prison. They couldn't inherit power easily. They couldn't challenge their husbands openly, but through La Voisin, they could act. They could fight fire with fire, whether by hex, poison, or whispered Latin invocations. And they didn't just kill rivals. Some came to banish nightmares, to cure infertility, to break hexes placed by other witches. It was a magical arms race, and La Voisin was the weapons dealer. You stand back as the client exits, her heels clicking on the stone floor like a metronome. La Voisin doesn't rest. Another woman is already at the door. Word has spread. Her underground network now spans midwives, rogue priests, street informants, and alchemists. She's got a man who delivers ingredients from Italy, another who smuggles rare poisons through Lyon, and a teen girl who listens at taverns for rumors. It's basically a criminal startup with incense, but something's starting to shift. You sense it in the tension of her staff. They're nervous. Some clients are talkative. A recent black mass got a little messy. There was blood on the floor that wouldn't come up. A servant almost saw too much. And worst of all, there's word of a rival, another fortune teller who's been speaking to the police. Whispers of betrayal are curling under the door like smoke. You lean against the stone wall, listening to La Voisin chant something low and rhythmic. Her hands hovering over a flickering bowl of herbs and bone. You think of the women who come here with shaking hands, hiding secrets beneath their perfume and pearls. Of the nobles smiling at Versailles while murder brews in teacups back home. And you wonder not for the last time how far someone has to fall before they come crawling to the devil or the woman pretending to speak for him. You wake up to the sound of hooves on cobblestone, muffled shouting, and the distinct metallic clatter of armor, like the city itself is holding its breath. Word spreads faster than ink dries in this town, and this morning the whispers have a sharp edge. Someone's been arrested. Someone important. And suddenly, all those secret ceremonies, all those polite little poisons exchanged over crystal goblets, feel dangerously exposed. La Voisin's underground empire isn't crumbling yet, but it's creaking. The authorities have caught wind of something ugly brewing just beneath their powdered noses. And it all begins with a domino. A woman named Marie Boss, once part of La Voisin's extended circle, makes a critical mistake. She boasts at a party, says she could ruin more homes than a flood, says she's untouchable. Big mistake. She's reported, arrested, and questioned hard. Not torture exactly, but in 17th century France. Enhanced interrogation includes devices with names like the boot. Faced with the choice between pain and confession, Boss spills. Names start dropping. Names of poisoners, witches, midwives, nobles. And just like that, the affair gains a new name, L'Affaire des Poisons, the Poison Affair. Catchy, huh? It has everything a scandal needs: sex, death, sorcery, and enough aristocrats to fill Versailles twice over. Suddenly, it's not just about La Voisin anymore. It's about the court, the crown, the integrity of the monarchy. Which is ironic, since at least a third of that monarchy probably dabbled in this mess. You hear guards clanking down streets, raiding the homes of known practitioners. Midwives disappear overnight. Apothecaries shutter their doors. La Voisin knows they're coming. She burns documents. She buries bottles. She even tells her daughter Marguerite to pack a bag and keep it near the door. But she doesn't. Run. Here's where things get foggy. Historians still argue whether La Voisin stayed put out of pride, strategy, or sheer disbelief that her clients, many of whom were close to the king, would let her be taken. She protected them, delivered for them. She knew things that could tear the court to pieces. Surely they wouldn't let her fall. Spoiler, they do. She's arrested in March 1679, right outside the church of Notre Dame de Bonne Nouvelle, where she just attended mass. You picture it now, her black skirts trailing across the church steps, her face impassive as soldiers approach, like she's seen this in a vision already. Maybe she had. She's taken to the Bastille. No velvet drapes here, just stone walls and cold straw. The guards are less polite, the food questionable, and the questions endless. They want names, methods, details. La Voisin stays quiet for a while. She knows the game. Silence is survival. Until, of course, in ISN single quotes D. in a quiet room lit by a single candle, she starts to speak. Not all at once. Not everything. But enough. She describes rituals, clients, the powders she sold, the masses she performed, the candles made with unusual ingredients. She confirms the involvement of midwives who helped with the legal abortions. She names the priest who called on Lucifer. But she holds back the one name everyone really wants: Madame de Montespan, the king's mistress, the mother of his children, a woman too important to accuse without proof and dangerous to protect if proof comes to light. Here's a juicy bit. La Voisin does mention Montespan privately to her jailers. Says the Marquise ordered love potions. Says she took part in black masses. Says she even conspired to poison the king when his affections started to drift elsewhere. But nothing is ever made official. Louis XIV, devout Catholic, absolute monarch. An image-obsessed PR machine does not want his bedroom drama made public. So what does he do? He creates a secret tribunal, La Chambre Ardente, literally, the burning court. Sounds fun, right? This special court has one job: investigate the poison scandal quietly but thoroughly. No public trials, no printed transcripts, just thick doors, long shadows, and verdicts handed down like thunderclaps. Over the next few years, more than 400 people are investigated. Nearly 200 are imprisoned. 36 are executed. A few are disappeared. It's a purge masked as justice. And here's where the contradictions pile up. Some of the people arrested were clearly guilty. Others, maybe they just bought an unlucky herb. Maybe they crossed the wrong neighbor. Maybe they were just women with too much knowledge and too few protectors. Historians still debate how much of this was legitimate crime fighting, and how much was class warfare with a powdered wick. La Voisin's trial never really happens in the traditional sense. She confesses enough to seal her fate. The court rules. The sentence is death. February 22, 1680. You stand at the edge of the crowd, breath fogging in the cold air. They've dragged out the wooden scaffolding, the flames licking high. La Voisin is led out, shackled, wrapped in a dark cloak. She doesn't scream. She doesn't cry. She refuses confession. Even now, there's something unsettling in her calm, like a storm that's already passed. As she's tied to the stake, the crowd shifts nervously. Some whisper prayers, others toss insults. But most just watch, eyes wide, waiting for the fire. When the torch is touched to the kindling, there's a long pause before the smoke rises. And then, just like that, Catherine Monvoisin is gone. Not erased, not forgotten, just transformed into legend. But here's the thing. The network she built doesn't die with her. People still whisper her name, still clutch the bottles she once sold, still light candles in basements and pray to things that don't appear in scripture. Because you can burn a person, but you can't burn the fear that made her necessary, the system that gave her power, or the secrets she took to her grave. The fire is burned out, but the smoke lingers, clinging to walls, to rumor, to the silks of the court like an invisible perfume. You're back at Versailles now, where the floors shine brightly and everyone's voice drops half a note when they say her name, La Voisin. They speak it like it might still summon something, even though her ashes were scattered long ago. But the damage isn't gone, not even close. The poison affair continues to ripple through France, like a stone dropped into still water that just keeps dropping. See, La Voisin may be dead, but her legacy is still bubbling underneath the powdered faces of the aristocracy. And that's because she didn't work alone, and now the authorities want the rest of her network. The Chambre Ardente, the king's private court, is still running its quiet little inquisition. Files are stacked high with names, many of them shaky accusations passed between prisoners who are desperate to save themselves. Midwives, herbalists, fortune tellers, many of them women, and many of them poor, are arrested, interrogated, and if unlucky, tortured. But the real prize, the one name still glowing red-hot behind every closed door, is Madame de Montespan. You remember her, golden-haired, sharp-tongued, the woman who once ruled Louis XIV's heart. But now she's walking a delicate tightrope. No one dares accuse her publicly, but everyone suspects. La Voisin's daughter, Marguerite, eventually confesses, perhaps under duress, that Montespan attended several black masses and once discussed poisoning the king, that she ordered aphrodisiacs made with Spanish fly and other unsavory ingredients, that she paid for rituals to keep the king's love and eliminate the competition. Now, here's where the story blurs again. Historians still argue whether Montespan was truly guilty of conspiring with La Voisin, or if she simply became a convenient scapegoat in a court that was beginning to turn against her. She'd been at the top for years, and nothing makes enemies like a long reign in the royal bed. King Louis, ever the strategist, chooses silence. He doesn't arrest Montespan. He doesn't confront her. Instead, he distances himself. Her role at court is gradually reduced. She remains at Versailles, technically still a lady of high status, but no longer the center of the king's attention. She fades, and with her, the scandal begins to cool, at least in public. But inside, Versailles is rotting at the edges. Behind every fan flutter and powdered cheek lies a quiet fear. Who's next? Who bought what from whom? That healing tonic for your cousin's cough, was it really just herbs? That charming little love spell tucked into your corset, was it connected to the network? And more importantly, who knows? This atmosphere of paranoia creates a kind of moral lockdown at court. Anything remotely occult is now dangerous. Astrologers, alchemists, and mystics once invited to parties now find their names scratched off the guest list. Even innocuous things like herbal teas get side-eyed just in case. You're standing in the gardens, looking out at fountains that never seem to stop flowing, while behind you, reputations are drying up faster than overbaked brioche. Those accused of even peripheral involvement in the poison affair are imprisoned without trial, some for years. In fact, Louis XIV, ever committed to control over chaos, orders the use of letters de cachet, royal orders that allow imprisonment without trial or charge. One of the most haunting cases. A woman named Marie Vigoureux, once a laundress and poisoner, is arrested and never seen again. No trial, no execution, just vanished into the king's prisons like a bad dream that never quite ends. And while you'd think this would bring peace, it doesn't, because power, like poison, leaves a residue. Let's jump briefly to the darker corners of the city, to the homes, where nobles no longer dare hire witches but still want their services. The market doesn't vanish, it just changes shape. Black market fortune-telling goes deeper underground. Potions are now sold by messenger, not in person. And those dark rituals, still happening, only with new names, new symbols, and far more secrecy. You even hear of counterfeit masses popping up, ceremonies that mimic black masses but offer no real power, just the illusion of control to clients desperate enough to believe. One such practitioner, years later, is found using melted chocolate in place of blood. Hey, if nothing else, it probably smelled better. This is also when the idea of witchcraft begins to shift. Not the pointy hat, broomstick kind, but the kind that wears perfume and pearls and blends into court life. Suddenly, a noble woman caught with a charm is whispered to be dangerous. It's no longer about superstition, it's about social sabotage. And here's your quirky fringe detail of the night. One prisoner, caught with a demon summoning parchment, claimed it worked only if read while facing a mirror and chewing raw fennel, not garlic. Fennel, apparently. Even the spirits of hell appreciate a touch of herbal flair. But let's not lose the thread. Louis XIV is watching it all, the trials, the rumors, the slow corrosion of his pristine court, and it rattles him. He begins to see magic not as a curiosity, but as a threat to his divine rule. In response, he strengthens the church's role in public life, commissions morality campaigns, and pushes hard for religious conformity. No more tolerance for witches or even the suggestion of them. It's Puritanism in brocade. And yet, the court remains obsessed with omens, dreams, and signs. Because human nature doesn't change, even when you outlaw its rituals. You notice the contradiction most sharply during a royal wedding in the early 1680s. The whole court turns up, dripping in diamonds, smiling through gritted teeth. But backstage, you hear it maids whispering about lucky herbs sewn into gowns, a bride's mother insisting on a particular priest just in case, and a discreet question posed to the new cook. You're not from La Voisin's circle, right? They don't say her name often, but her shadow, it's still attending parties. Because even after her death, even after the tribunal dissolves and the letters of imprisonment are sealed away, La Voisin continues to haunt Versailles. Like smoke that clings to velvet, she's no longer just a poisoner. She's a myth, a warning, a name muttered when the candles flicker unexpectedly. And she's not quite done with you yet. You wander through Versailles at dusk now, past gold-leafed mirrors and chandeliers that drip crystal, like they're trying to hard. The court still sparkles, but it's hollow behind the eyes. You can feel it, can't you? The tension doesn't hum anymore, it buzzes. La Voisin may be ash and memory, but the mechanisms she exposed still creak beneath the surface, barely hidden. And you're not alone in noticing that, because now, the king himself begins rewriting the script. Louis XIV, once amused by mystics and divinations, wants a new legacy, one soaked not in scandal, but in divine order. He shutters the Chambre Ardente in 1682, officially ending the tribunal that had consumed his court. No more secret trials, no more dramatic accusations, just silence, except you know better. Silence isn't absence, it's survival strategy. In this moment, you find yourself brushing shoulders with those who've weathered the storm. Some of them still carry talismans hidden beneath their corsets. Some pray twice, once to God, and once to someone else. The poisons are still out there. The rituals still flicker in shadowy corners, but no one speaks openly anymore. Not after what happened to La Voisin. Here's the twist that keeps you up at night. She didn't kill 1,000 people with her own hands, probably not even close, but through her powders, her rituals, and the desperation of her clients. The number becomes plausible. Fringe historians cling to that figure like a badge. citing whispers and confessions scraped together in dark corners. Mainstream scholars, they scoff. They say the number is inflated, sensationalized, the product of fear meeting gossip. But historians still argue whether her operation was criminally efficient, or just the scapegoat of a monarchy terrified of its own reflection. What no one debates is the impact. La Voisin's story marks the shift from medieval mysticism to Enlightenment paranoia. Her downfall is the court's turning point the moment France's ruling class realizes that unregulated belief is more dangerous than any army from now on. Science begins to take precedence. Superstition is exiled, replaced with empiricism and, eventually, revolution. Which, turns out super well for everyone with a crown. But let's not jump too far ahead. Because right now, in the final chapters of the 1680s, a peculiar thing is happening. You start to notice the echoes of La Voisin in literature, in plays, in cautionary tales told to wide-eyed children by candlelight. She's transformed from midwife and poisoner into something more spectral, the bogey woman of Versailles. Noble families begin adding footnotes to their own family histories, carefully redacting the cousins who might have known her. Recipes from the time appear with ingredients mysteriously renamed. Angel's trumpet becomes moon. Herb. Belladonna is now nightshade with warnings scrawled in shaky ink. The knowledge isn't gone, just hidden, like contraband stuffed beneath floorboards. And speaking of hiding things, remember her daughter, Marguerite. She doesn't vanish. Not entirely. After her mother's execution, she's held for years, forced to live under supervision. There are reports she was questioned dozens of times, her every word weighed for secrets. Some accounts suggest she tried to denounce Montespan formally, but no action was taken. She eventually fades into obscurity, a loose end Versailles prefers not to pull. Meanwhile, Madame de Montespan herself lives out her days in awkward dignity. She withdraws from court life, retreats to a convent for stretches of quiet repentance, and dies in 1707 without ever being publicly charged. Her children with the king, meanwhile, remain deeply embedded in French nobility. The stain of scandal doesn't quite stick, at least not on the surface. But beneath that surface, whole generations grow up hearing ghost stories that begin in confessionals and end at bonfires. One particularly persistent tale involves a nobleman whose mistress dies suddenly after a whispered meeting with a so-called perfume maker. Her perfume, said to smell like lilacs and copper. Another story floats through Paris salons about a priest who was found muttering prayers backward in a locked chamber lined with salt. Real? Who knows? But real enough to last. And you, ever curious, start to realize that what La Voisin really sold wasn't poison. It was power, the illusion of control in a world ruled by whims. A shortcut to love, inheritance, survival. And that's what made her dangerous, not her potions, but her understanding of need. Because here's the soft, unspoken truth that Versailles never quite admits: it needed La Voisin. It needed someone to absorb the panic, the jealousy, the ambitions that polite society wasn't allowed to name. She was the system's shadow, drawing in the fear so the rest could shine bright. When she burned, the light dimmed too. And maybe that's the part that haunts you most. Not the poison, not the mass, but the silence that followed. The way everyone rushed to forget while still glancing sideways at every apothecary. Every whispering maid, every strange candle flickering during a thunderstorm. Even now, as you lie back and exhale, you can still feel the weight of her presence, heavy as velvet and twice as dark. Her story doesn't end with her death. It lingers. It warns. It reminds you that wherever power gathers, so does desperation, and in desperation, there will always be someone like La Voisin waiting. So now, as the echoes of Versailles fade, you let the imagery soften. No more burning stakes or whispered names behind gilded doors. Just the hush of a candle sputtering out in the distance. The marble corridors grow longer, emptier, less threatening. The clamor of scandal melts into the hush of memory. You're safe now. The story is behind you. And no one's asking questions. No one's watching the flick of your eyes or weighing your silence for guilt. La Voisin has stepped back into the shadows where she came from, and her court of secrets has gone quiet for tonight. At least breathe in slowly, and let that last ember of tension cool in your chest. No more poisons. No more plotting. Just the soft hum of stillness filling the spaces between your thoughts. You can almost hear the wind tugging at the velvet drapes of a long-forgotten salon. The echo of heels on marble floors that no longer matter. Whatever she was, sorceress, poisoner, myth, La Voisin is finally still. And you're here, wrapped in quiet, far from the reach of royal paranoia and underground empires. So let your body sink just a little deeper into your sheets. Let your breathing slow, like the final pages of a worn-out book. You've made it through. The scandal, the fire, the fall. And if your dreams tonight include flickering candles or mysterious potions, well, just don't drink anything unlabeled. Sleep safe.